Hi, my name is Rebecca Peterson, and I'm talking about Harriet Tubman, and she is applying for the job of an emergency management coordinator. Some of the things that you need for this job is leadership, decision making, time management. You need to be organized, you need to be able to collaborate and problem solve, be a team manager, a project manager, have attention to detail, and be calm under pressure. And I'll go into it a little bit later, but all of those things Harriet Tubman has shown in her life that she is able to do and does it very well. Over the course of her life, she worked tirelessly. She worked from the time that she was born in 1822, 1822, and to when she died at 91 years old. She was committed to fighting against things like racism and classism. Didn't matter who you were, what you had, what you didn't have, what you looked like. None of that, she believes, should have stopped you from equal rights, which was another thing that she fought really hard for, was equality. When the Civil War ended and the women's suffrage started, or was really just made a bigger deal, put a spotlight on, she talked about how equality is the foundation for what she believes. And that means it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, what you deserve is equal. So the suffragette, she fought alongside Susan B. Anthony and many others for the women's rights to vote. And an interesting thing about her, and part of why I picked her, is because she has such a unique experience and point of view, given the fact that she is both a woman and is black. And while she has such a unique perspective and experience, it also translates to all of the lives that she touched and inspired from that. So that's part of why I had her picked to be an emergency management coordinator. In her list of skills, she is an activist, she's intelligent, she's communication, resilient, she's good under pressure, a problem solver, a strategic planner, and a leader. So she is well fit for this. The only issue is she was not formally educated, because given the time that she grew up, there was no need for that. She started working when she was 6, taking care of children. So, but in this day and age now, I believe that she would go to school and have the proper training for whatever it is that she would decide to be. But she started her work experience on an estate in Maryland, where she was born in Dorchester County. And that's the place that she traveled back to so often in her trips to the Underground Railroad. But she was very creative. Even though she was a slave, she did what she could to be able to pick her own work, which is where she spent more time with her father, and she met sailors, and she started working on the Underground Railroad and met the other people. It was through that avenue. So her life's work started very, very young. When she was 13, she witnessed somebody trying to run away, and she didn't stop them, she didn't aid them, she was watching, and their handler, slave master, was in a struggle to try to get them to stop from leaving, and she was hit in the crossfire with a brick to the head. But when she was told to help, she didn't. So she is strong in her beliefs in what's right and wrong, and she has a good moral compass. So then when she escaped and made the trip to freedom, the 90-mile trip from Maryland to Philadelphia, she started working on the Underground Railroad as a conductor. So she's familiar with the land, she's good under pressure. There's a famous quote that talks about how she said, "I never ran my train off the tracks and I never lost a passenger," which is true. She, even when other people started to freak out, she ushered them along and got them to a safe place. There was a bounty on her head for about $40,000 back then, which is way more money now. And even with that kind of being something that would stop people, she continued to help free as many slaves as she could. Then she worked in the Union Army as a spy slash scout slash nurse. She enlisted as a nurse, and then she started working as a spy and a scout, and then she managed groups of spies and scouts throughout the course of the war. She also helped plan raids where she freed over 750 slaves. But she also has the first aid training that in an emergency in the field that she has the skills that you need, even though she hasn't been formally educated. And then after the Civil War, she worked kind of as a humanitarian in New York, which is where she settled. She had this dream of a home for people who didn't have anything or came out of slavery and were old and tired. She wanted like a safe haven for them. So she couldn't financially keep that on her own, so she gave it to a church in exchange that they would make her dreams happen. She ended up being a member of that community and died there at the age of 91 from pneumonia, I believe. But in that time in New York, she was part of the women's suffragette movement, and she has many people that she came across who would speak highly of her, but some of her references that I put on her resume would be Susan B. Anthony, who she worked alongside with the suffrage movement, Colonel James Montgomery, who she worked with in the Civil War to help plan raids, Frances Seward and the Senator Seward, who are senators in New York, who originally gave her land, who were activists, and Mrs. Seward was also, she worked in the suffrage movement as well, fighting for equality for women. And then William Still is an Underground Railroad accomplice that she knows, who worked with her, helped train her, teach her the ins and outs of how the process worked, and then she was able to do it on her own. She spent her whole life and was super dedicated. She got remarried after the Civil War to a man who then died, and she spent the next 25 years, from the age of like 65 or so, continuing to fight for equality in the newfound United States. Nothing was really gonna stop her. She spent her whole life dedicated, which is part of why I think that she is such a good candidate as an emergency management coordinator. She has the experience of working with people. She knows how to plan and be well under pressure, because she did it back then when her life was at stake. In an emergency, you need people that you can rely on, and that's exactly what she is. And any of the formal training that they can teach her exactly what they need, given the company that they are. And but she has the life experience that goes with the qualities that they need for this type of a job.